Hello everyone, today is June 8th, 2023, and this is another video brought to you guys by YPAC. Today we're going to be going over Mike Pence's CNN Town Hall. So if you guys aren't familiar, which we've already uploaded a few shorts about Mike Pence's, presidential journey thus far in 2024, but on Monday he officially filed the paperwork to run as a candidate for the Republican nomination. And now yesterday, he had his official rally in Iowa, followed by the CNN Town Hall. So CNN Town Halls are something that they have for pretty much every major candidate in the race. They had one for Donald Trump a few months back, I think 1 or 2 months, and that town hall was much different than this town hall. In that town hall, Caitlin Collins and Donald Trump did not have a very respectful relationship. No one called anyone nasty this time around, which is much, it's an improvement for sure. And the decorum and respectfulness between the interviewer and the interviewee this time, Mike Pence and Dana Bash, was much better, and I hope this continues for the rest of the CNN town halls. And it's very amazing for our democracy for CNN to be hosting these for all the major candidates and not just, Donald Trump and Joe Biden and Ron DeSantis, but really giving all the candidates, even if they are polling in the single digits like Mike Pence is, a chance to talk about their vision for America and their views on certain things. So talking about those views, let's jump into what Mike Pence actually talked about during his town hall. So the first issue is Ukraine. He had a very different perspective on the Ukrainian war than did Donald Trump. Donald Trump refused to pick a side between, in my eyes, good and evil, or at least right and wrong in this war. And honestly just called Putin a genius rather than a war criminal. And that's exactly what Pence called him this time around, a war criminal, which is what he is. And he wasn't afraid to say what side he wanted to win, which was obviously Ukraine. And he garnered applause for that. And I think that, sure, that's amazing, but that's also one of the baseline things that every human should be able to say that they support Ukraine, and that should be a fundamental thing. We don't go out around saying the most basic lines and getting applause for it. It should be as simple as waking up in the morning and brushing your teeth. This should not be something that's extraordinary for Mike Pence to be saying it. And not even us as Americans, just as us as humans everywhere should be on the side of the Ukrainians. So I'm at least glad that Pence got that out, but that's not a bonus point for him. That should be the default. So next on capital punishment, Dana Bash asked him a really good question. She posed the question as, there are people, most people that commit school shootings or mass shootings, want to kill themselves, also want to die. They're not out there saying that, oh, I'm going to suffer certain consequences or I want to live after this. They want to kill other people as well as themselves. In most cases, they either kill themselves or first responders kill them first. In other cases, even if the first responders wouldn't have gotten there, they would have killed themselves afterwards anyways. And so she posed this question as in, how do you support capital punishment as being a deterrent to these crimes when most of the people want to kill themselves anyways? And Pence did not seem to have a response to this. He seemed kind of flustered, and it was really interesting to watch him try to maneuver some type of response to this question that he hadn't been expecting. And his response was somewhat of a non-response. He kind of just talked about the Parkland shooter and how he's going to be in prison in Florida for the rest of his life, and that doesn't seem to be like justice, but didn't actually answer the question at hand. And a question I have for Mike Pence and a lot of Republicans is how they believe that capital punishment is a deterrent, which in the case that what Dana Bash is saying is true about, most shooters being suicidal, how that could possibly be a deterrent when stricter gun laws don't seem to be a deterrent. You can't have your cake and eat it too, So that was on capital punishment in the shooting issue. And then on abortion. So obviously Mike Pence is an evangelical. He's very religious. He, that's what he puts forward, and a lot of his values and his political beliefs is his religion. And so it's no surprise that he's pro-life. And he heavily believes in that. And he was talking about how he is very proud to be part of an administration in which 3 justices were nominated that helped overturn Roe. He's very proud of that, and that's something that we see throughout the night, is he really tries to connect himself to the highlights in the sense of Republicans, obviously, highlights of the Trump administration, and tries to distance himself from the flaws of the Trump administration and from Trump himself. And so on abortion, not surprising, but he said that we need bans and that our current laws are like China and Iran and North Korea, which isn't really true. But Mike Pence does support exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother. Just to clear that out, Mike Pence does not support rape. He supports exceptions for abortions for rape, incest, and life of the mother. But something that I found surprising is that he doesn't specifically endorse any paid family leave or subsidized child care programs. And so I think that, again, you can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't force women to have these children and then not provide an alternative for them to either leave work for a while and have that paid leave or put their child into the care of someone else as in child care. You have to be able to say that you support something like that if you're going to force people to have children that, they either can't afford or didn't initially want, or et cetera, et cetera. But, overall on the issue of abortion, he seems to be pretty in line with what most Republicans view. And, it's not surprising considering his religious upbringing and beliefs. And then on the Trump indictment. So by the time I'm recording this, Trump has officially been indicted, and he's going to be arrested, apparently, for the classified documents case. So TBD on how that's going to play out. But on the indictment, he really said that, yes, Trump committed crimes and attempted to violate the Constitution, but we should move on with no consequences. And I'm obviously summarizing there. But that's basically along the lines of what he said. He said, we have the rule of law, but, and I don't even need to continue. Once you say something as basic as we have the rule of law, that should not be changed in any way, shape, or form. The rule of law is one of the most important precedents that we have in this country. And then saying but afterwards completely neglects that. He claimed that if the DOJ were to continue with this investigation, that would only fuel further divides and send a terrible message to the rest of the world. But I think that, the rule of law, as he said, should be put forward. That's that. On the next issue, January 6th, he said that he wouldn't pardon anyone who assaulted police officers or vandalized the Capitol, and that was pretty much his exact wording. But that still leaves room for other people. So even if it may sound like he's not going to pardon anyone, he still might pardon some individuals. And he was short on that since obviously he wasn't pro anything that happened that day, since, most of the rioters were cheering hang Mike Pence. So he's not on their side for what it seems like. And then he didn't respond if he's going to pardon Donald Trump or not. He kind of ignored that question, being like, who knows if I'm going to be president, which, looking at the polls, he's probably not. And then on transgender, that whole issue, which, that's a culture wars thing. We don't like to get into that side of politics as much. We like to stay on policy and elections. But on that issue, he said that he supports parental rights in schools, but not when it comes to parents that support their children's decision to seek gender transition care. And he said, he talked about like the Indiana legislation that bans all gender transition chemical or surgical procedures under the age of 18. And when Dana Bash asked him, what would you say to families that feel personally attacked by this sort of legislation? He said something that I think is kind of more, I'm struggling with wording here, but because it's something that we don't see from Republicans. But he said something pretty endearing. He said, in reading the exact quote, I'd put an arm around them and tell them I love them, but that they just have to wait. And that's not the exact quote, but something around there. And I found that really interesting because he seems to be, because he even said in his speech that he's in favor of them transitioning, like adults doing whatever they want to do, but not just with children. And so I think that's somewhat of a different approach than we see from people like Ron DeSantis, who seem to be against transgender people altogether. I mean, not that Mike Pence isn't, but that, he's letting his libertarian, the libertarian come out in him and let adults do what they want and, First Amendment rights and everything. And then the last thing I want to talk about is the First Step Act, which is something that was fundamental to the Trump administration. It basically allowed federal inmates, most of which were serving sentences for drug offenses or weapon charges, to be released early for either good behavior or for participation in rehabilitation programs, and also lowered mandatory minimum charges for certain drug offenders. And Pence about this said that we need to take a step back from the First Step Acts. So planned words there, but he also said that, he wants to get tougher on crime. Again, self-contradicting himself. If you want to get tougher on crime, why not follow the rule of law and say that Trump should be indicted for the criminal offenses that he's committed? Or so the state of New York finds. So those were the main points of this town hall. It was very respectful, I think, and the crowd didn't seem to have an extreme bias to one side or the other like they did with the Trump town hall. So I was much more happy with what I saw there. And overall, I think it's a very good thing for our democracy for all these different candidates. And I hope that, some of the lesser candidates right now, like Nikki Haley and Asa Hutchinson, and other people get their voices also heard on these town halls. So that's not just, Trump, Ron DeSantis, and Biden, that we see these other voices that, that's what's best for our democracy, in my opinion. So thank you for watching. I hope to see you guys next time. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let us know down below what you thought of this video and what videos you want to see further from us.